All right, welcome everyone to the first edition of a live Q&A with Gilly. Basically, the way this is going to go, as we go through the call, feel free to join us at any time. Leave your questions in the chat box. I'll read them as we go through, and then I'll reply to you if I select you, and then I'll unmute your mic and you can just ask Gilly live. So let's get right into it. How are you doing, Gilly?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Bucky. Good. Thanks. Nice and wet where I am at the moment, but yeah, I'm using an umbrella. I'm putting on a jacket, and I'm good to go.
You got your gum boots?
No gummies, mate. No gummies.
Awesome. Awesome. So we had a few of our members submitted some really great questions. So we're going to start off just with a reminder, you guys, make sure you use a notebook. You'll remember what you write down. So jot down some notes because these are going to be really helpful and pertinent to your rugby training. So first question is from Antonio. My main question I have for Gilly is what does he do to get the boys or what does he get the boys to do to help with jet lag when changing time zones so they're ready for training and preparations for competition?
Yeah, good question. Good question. I suppose for any athletes or for any person that's traveling a decent way, the jet lag or the adjusting to the time zone and the recovery from the travel is sort of two different things. We get travel fatigue from not sleeping very well, not being comfortable, breathing some bizarre air that's pumped through the jets. So I think there's one that you're generally a little bit sleep deprived once you get to your location. That's the first thing you got to acknowledge, that there will be some fatigue from the travel. And the second thing is that you're trying to, I suppose, get into a new time zone. The most important thing is just to get straight into the new time zone. So if you arrive and it's lunchtime, you have lunch. If you arrive and it's the afternoon and it's actually middle of the night back home, well, you definitely don't go and jump in your bed and have a little quick sleep. So I think the most important thing is you get straight into the new time zone and you structure, I suppose, your days around trying to get sunlight to stay awake. Structure your days so you're avoiding just lying down on your bed for 5 minutes, even though it feels really good. You just stay away. Put things in place to keep you and your group awake, whether it's a card game or going out for dinner or something like that. So you just need to try and help each other stay awake. When the time's right, get some sleep, and know that it's going to take you, probably a day for every 2 hours of time shift. So if you travel and there's a 10-hour time shift, it's probably going to take you 5 or 6 days to feel half okay. And just be patient and try to stick to the new schedule in the country you're in.
Do you use caffeine at all or do you try to avoid that? Like to stay awake, you know what I mean? Like say if it's
I love caffeine, mate. So caffeine definitely is on my plan. I think people should use what works best for them, and like I definitely use coffee when I'm feeling a bit flat, especially that if we've traveled up to the UK, the afternoon's pretty challenging. So yeah, sunlight or caffeine and caffeine are probably the two key things. And I think that, also acknowledging the fact that if you've been on a plane for 20 or 30 hours, you probably will have a bit of a stiff, sore lower back. So you need to make sure you loosen up your hips and your lower back. And you probably need to just not have the first day with any intense exercise, but take a day or two before you ramp things up a bit, especially through the lower back.
Excellent. So I hope that helps, Tony. That's a pretty comprehensive answer. And if you have any other questions about that at all, then join us next month. So Martin is a member of Perform. He had a great question. Gilly, is there one or several KPIs that you feel are actually meaningful? And to go into his question, I somewhat automatically track HRV and resting heart rate through my sports watch, strength numbers by logging training, plus my best 5K and Bronco time. He keeps track of his weight as well. If these numbers are moving roughly where he wants them to be, does that mean that his training is productive, or should he focus on feeling better on the pitch and how he's performing as a rugby player?
Well, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I'll answer it two ways. I think tracking your numbers is great, because if you are progressing in all those areas, then the program you're currently on is doing wonders for you. Getting fitter, getting stronger, and sleeping well, I think are really, really important numbers to be able to see. However, getting good gains in the gym or getting improvements in Bronco doesn't mean you're going to play better on Saturday. So I think that the balance needs to be in a way where you're getting physically better, but you're fresh come game day, so you can express your skills. The fittest player is not the best player. Okay, so the difference being executing your core role under pressure and under fatigue. And so if you're going to a game a bit flat, then you're not going to be able to do your role at the level that you possibly could. So I think get the balance right between tracking numbers and then feeling amazing on game day so that you can actually express yourself.
That's good that you said that too, because I know this question in one way or another comes up a lot with our members. They're wanting to push hard through the week. They want to make sure they're progressing. And with one of our coaching clients, I really worked hard to rein him in during the week. And then sure enough, performances on the Saturday just skyrocketed. So for you guys listening to this, to the recorded version, make sure you really take that to heart. All right, Callum had a great question. Hey, Nick, what are your go-to off-feet alternative conditioning workouts for rugby? So could you think of, I know that's a big question because there could be tons.
Holy heck, how long we got, Callum? Holy heck, mate. Hey, look, I think it's yeah, look, hey, off feet's really important for a lot of people for a lot of reasons, but I think for me, it's probably dependent on the needs of the athlete and even the position the athlete's in, but also, I suppose, the physical profile of that person at the time. So, if you're an athlete that, starts to struggle at the 50, 60, 70-minute mark, then maybe the off-feed intervals need to be more aerobic based to build endurance. If you're an athlete that, how you play the game and how you perform your role on the field and your position and your team involves lots of repeat high intensity tasks, and you feel like you can express some high power outputs one or two or three times, but then you feel like you're just losing a bit of power because you're getting tired, then maybe your off-feet sessions need to be more repeat high intensity, short duration efforts. So you're trying to work on the recovery of that anaerobic output. So, I think it's a question that really depends on the context. And I think if you establish or figure out where it is that you need to get some development, what energy system you need to develop and a reason why, based on your rugby performance, then that should answer your question. Short and intense, working on repeatability, or longer efforts, working on endurance, and obviously parts in between.
Gilly, so just on that note, because I'm sure Callum's going to take that to heart and potentially, hopefully implement those things. If he was to do power output training, let's say he was doing 5 to 10 second efforts at a sprint pace, how long would you say he should rest in between efforts?
If you're wanting to improve maximal output, then you need longer rest.
Mm-hmm.
If you're wanting to work on repeatability, you need slightly shorter rests so that you are actually challenging the body to recover faster. Mm-hmm. So if it was all about improving my one-off effort, I'd probably have a 1 to 10 work to rest ratio. Mm-hmm. So if you're working hard for 10 seconds, then I'd be looking to have, 3-4 minutes off. If you're trying to work on maximal output. If you wanted to work on repeatability, then it's probably more like a 1 to 6, 1 to 3. So if you're working on 6-second maximal effort and you want to repeat it, then I'd be sort of having 30 seconds of a breather and then going again, or 40 seconds of a breather going again, so that you are working on maximal output, but you're trying to repeat it, and therefore challenging the body to recover, build up lactic acid, operate under increased lactic acid conditions, and in time you'll become a lactate animal.
That should be a t-shirt, lactate animal. Love that.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Jack had a great question. What neck exercises do you recommend adding into the training week during an off-season block?
Good question. Next, massively important. I think that I think that a lot of the injury risk factors should be worked on all the time. So neck, calf, hamstring. And if you want to get improvement, then you can't do those exercises once a week. So, if you do those things twice a week, then, you might make a few changes and a few gains, but doing them 3 times a week is probably where the gold's at. So, I mean, I think neck bridges, I think neck harness work, I think just manual resistance neck exercise with a partner, and just constantly challenging the neck through flexion, extension, but also isometric holds. So I think that's probably all that you're needing to do is, whether that's on the field in your warm up, some bridges, some wrestling bridges, whether it's in the gym with some harnesses, working on extension or flexion or both, a rotational work. There's plenty of different exercises to put in there, but you probably need to be doing it 3 times a week.
And would you say, so for guys out there or girls out there listening to this that are on a busy schedule and say they have 90 minutes to train, and they need to be doing this 2 to 3 times a week, would they be doing this then during their rest periods? Like, could they get their neck training in during rest?
Absolutely. Like if you think about we're trying to get stronger, then we're probably needing 3 minutes between sets. That 3 minutes, let's say 15 seconds of it's recovering from your lift, putting the bar up, and then you need to prep for the next set. So maybe that's another 15 seconds. Sorry. So all of a sudden you got about 2 minutes. So if you're organized and you've got your harness next to your squat, for example, then in your rest period you do your modifiable risk factors, and it means you're going to have a better quality rest and a sufficient rest. You're going to lift better in your core lift, and at the same time you're getting some more added value out of your program.
Beautiful. Love it. And something for you guys listening as well that we're going to be working on, the conditioning manual should be out next week. And then after that, we're going to look at an injury prevention manual. So stay tuned. Ollie had a great question. What could an athlete do in the gym to help recover from plantar fasciitis?
Yeah, good question. I actually was going to suggest we didn't talk about this one, but I decided against that. I suppose first of all, the recovery of an injury like plantar fasciitis should be led by a physio or a doctor, right? So that's the first thing. But if the symptoms are starting to improve, then I think the thing for me is understanding how it happened in the first place, and then trying to understand the mechanism of why this occurred so that it can be prevented. If it's from poor footwear, if it's from too much loading through the front of the foot and pushing positions, when you're not strong enough or you weren't ready for it, then obviously you want to either avoid that going forward. But the mechanism is important because that's probably where you need to improve your strength. And so, proprioception work, horizontal loading or strengthening so that the front of the foot has been loaded, and treatment, using a ball to make sure that you're massaging and loosening off that tightness that you're feeling. But the first thing is guided by a physiotherapist, understanding mechanism, and then avoiding whatever created it in the first place, and understanding that we need to progress that thing. So as I said, if it was horizontal sled pushes that brought it on, doesn't mean you don't do horizontal sled pushes, but maybe you just got to build up the load and the speed slowly as the body becomes accustomed to that position.
Good one. Yeah, I think on the note of footwear as well, like, Ollie, make sure, obviously rugby boots are going to be tight around the front of the foot, but there are brands out there, like I know Adidas. For me, I've got a really wide foot. They tend to fit better. So look into that. Make sure you get some boots that fit a wider foot. They might not be as fashionable, but they'll be more effective for you.
Adidas. interesting. Lucky Adidas.
Yeah. The Copa, if you want to go old school, the Copa Mundial, man, they're nice wide foot. My dad and I have big clod hoppers, so we tend to wear the same boots. Um, so this question was for me because I'm interested, and I know a lot of our athletes are also interested in how you train and recover. So, what is your go-to snack after a training session when you're hangry and you can't go home and have a meal right away?
Um, yeah, like people always ask that sort of question. Like I think essentially it depends on the session that you've done, right? So first of all, it depends what training you've done. And second of all, it depends on what you've organized prior, because you can't eat anything if you haven't organized your stuff. Like if you haven't prepared to fuel after the session, then you're not going to eat anything that's half good for you. So I think if it was a strength session, then I'd be looking towards definitely a protein source of some sort. So whether that was in the form of a boiled egg, or a scoop of whey protein and some water or some milk shaken up in a shaker. So I think a source of protein post a gym session is important. So it depends what you've organized and where you are. In contrast to that, if it's a running based conditioning session or a long rugby session, then you're probably needing a little bit of protein, but also some carbohydrate. So again, I'd probably be having a smoothie as something that I'd feel like putting into my mouth. And the difference being that I might throw some berries in it to get some carbohydrate load. So the berries and the milk and the protein, and I've got my perfect recovery sort of snack. If I was trying to hold on to lean muscle, I'd probably be having a boiled egg. If I was trying to fill the tank up and recover well from an on-feet session, a rugby session or a running session, then a banana, oranges, anything with some good carbohydrate load would help refuel or replenish the glycogen in the muscles. So context is important, what sort of session, and then where you are and what's available or what you've organized. But we do know that within 20 to 30 minutes, we need to provide the body with something to help us recover from whatever it is we did.
Awesome. All right, last question from our members. This is a good one. So Katie asks, if an athlete strains, sprains, or breaks something in a leg or arm, can they continue training on the non-injured side if they had been assessed by a physiotherapist and doctor? And does this cause
Absolutely.
a strength imbalance?
You're going to get a strength imbalance anyway, right? You're going to get a strength imbalance because one arm can't be used, can't be moved. So you're going to start to lose strength really fast and muscle size. So our advice, at least, is that you keep training the arm that's okay. And there is this phenomenon called cross education where, if you're training just your left side, then hormonally and neurally, you're likely to get some gains on the side you're not training anyway. Okay, so it's been shown in some literature a long time ago that training single limb, there will be transference to the untrained limb. And so, yes, there will be an asymmetry developed, but you're better off having one strong arm and one weak arm than having two weak arms. So definitely get into the single arm training or single leg training to try and maintain or minimize loss.
Awesome. And Katie, just to add to that as well, that could also mean that you need to ask someone in the gym to assist you. If you can't pick things up and carry them around, ask a workout buddy to go with you, ask someone to help you, because as Gilly just said, you can still at least maintain. All right, guys, that was awesome. We look forward to the next edition we'll do next month. Gilly's going to be in the thick of it in the World Cup, so we'll figure out how to do that around his schedule. But thanks a lot, Gilly. This was awesome.
No sweat. Thanks, team. Go well. Take care. Train hard.